Hello, my name is Boehlje, and today I will be discussing the financials for the owner of Edgewood Equestrian LLC. I will begin with the income statement, followed by the returned earnings, and I will end with the balance sheet. The income statement will include revenues and expenses / the net income at the end. The retained earnings will deal with the beginning retained earnings, net income / any dividends or common stock that may be available, and it will end with the end balance of retained earnings for the year. The balance statement will include current assets and actual assets, and then will include liabilities and stockholders' equity. I will then add any final suggestions as to what Edgewood Equestrian LLC is missing. So first, I will discuss the income statement. On the income statement, you start with your revenue. I believe in this case the only revenue that I could find was the riding lessons. This is because everyone who pays for the riding lessons, revenue is coming in, and it's how we are supporting our business. Then we have our expenses. I believe that our expenses are the hay and the grain so that the horses can still eat, and also the groundskeeper salary because that is something that we pay to the groundskeeper, and also the boarding service. So once we have our net income, whether it is a loss or a surplus, we move on to our retained earnings statement. So on our retained earnings statement, we use that net income and we subtract any dividends and add any other things that we need. And that will give us the end of our retained earnings statement at the end of our year. Moving on to our balance sheet. We start off with current assets. In this case, our current assets are our cash and our horse show cash awards. These are our current assets because it involves liquidity. So these assets have really fast liquidity. They can be they can be pulled out whenever we need and at a very fast pace. Next, we move on to just assets in general. We have a tack. We also have horse supplies, that was on the list. We have the horses in general, and that was 20. We have pitchforks / shovels, and we have the exercise equipment and the investments. These are all assets because they are what brings in money for us, and they are not liabilities because we are not spending money on them in the future. So moving on, under assets as well, we have property, plant, and equipment. So we have stables, the barn, and the land, and these all go under property, plant, and equipment in that section on the balance sheet, but it is still under the assets. Moving on, we have our liabilities. Our liabilities will be the ranch hand wages, which is what we have to pay to our employees. Next, we have our mortgage, and then we have our line of credit. So those are all of our liabilities under the balance sheet. Next, we have our equity, our stockholders' equity. This is where our retained earnings comes in. This is also where any common stock comes in, but mainly our retained earnings for this case. So we would add our retained earnings and our liabilities to this case, make sure that our assets and our liabilities and stockholders' equity are the same, and that is how we balance out our balance sheet. So, I believe that Edgewood Equestrian LLC did miss a couple things. I do believe that they should have told me about any dividends that they would have. Even if their dividends are 0, it is nice to have that written down because then our retained earnings is a lot easier to record and we don't have to go look that up for ourselves. Next, insurance. I didn't see insurance on the list, and I believe this is a main priority. Especially dealing with horses, I feel as though this LLC should have insurance. Now, they could have insurance and just not have put it down, but I highly recommend that they do if they do not. Next, we have any accounts payable that they have to pay to. So any vendors, wherever they're hosting, if they have competitions, if they're hosting competitions, wherever they have to pay for anything such as that, any accounts payable that need to go under your liability section on your balance sheet. And next, any bank loans. If to start off their business they had any loans, or if they have any current loans in the process, then they need to put those down on their balance sheet so that we can know. In the end, I believe that they are doing fairly well. And that is all for the financials for Edgewood Equestrian LLC. Thank you for your time.